Loaded show here on the Heat Report by Chat Sports. I am Nic Rohloff. The Heat, do they actually want Damian Lillard to a high degree, and will they go after him? Also, Bradley Beal, if he gets bought out, will Miami try to sign him? Plus a Jonathan Kuminga update. But it is the 4th of July. It's busy in the NBA world. But happy Independence Day. Happy 4th of July, Heat fans. If you are fired up, spam 4 down in the comments for the 4th of July. And with that being said, let's get started with today's show. And we'll be starting with the latest on Damian Lillard because we do actually have a pretty significant update on Dame that is very helpful for Miami if you are someone that wanted to add Lillard to this roster. Because Chris Haynes, who is the most connected reporter with Lillard, they're very tight, and any report around Dame from Haynes is basically coming from Damian Lillard. Haynes reported that Lillard is open to signing with a team this offseason under the right terms, equaling a multi-year contract. So he continues rehabbing with that team and returns for that team in 2026. He's receiving a lot of interest, but is in no rush to make a decision. And as I kind of alluded to, this is really big for the Miami Heat if you are someone that wants Damian Lillard to join Miami this upcoming offseason, because the only way you get Dame to the 305 is if you give him a multi-year deal, whether it is 2 years, whether it is 3 years. You let him rehab with your staff this season, and then he returns next season to play with whatever your roster may look like. Or you could be under contract for 2 more years if you signed him to a 3-year deal, and then you would have him for 2 seasons after he recovers from his Achilles injury. I don't think it's the worst idea either, because even though Miami is going young, they go young this year, they take a gap year, and then have a lot of expirings, rookies taking the next step, young guys taking the next step, and then Dame coming back to help nurture that roster. And we know the Miami Heat will pursue as well. And I actually don't think it's a bad idea. And I know that people are going to say, youth. We want to go youth. Yeah, you're doing that this season. And then you get a full another year to kind of look at them in terms of your young guys and say, all right, which players are we going to try to keep long term? Which ones are we not going to? And then you also have Dame coming back to help appease Adebayo and make Bam happy and some of those other guys that want to win now. Now, you do have a lot of competition for Damian Lillard, though. These are the 5 teams that have registered the most interest to this point. Golden State Warriors, Los Angeles Lakers, Blazers, and Celtics are 4 teams that have been linked to Dame outside of Miami. Now, I will say this, when looking at the other teams here, the one that makes the most sense is honestly the Boston Celtics. And that is the part that concerns me the most, is because we know they're taking a gap year this year anyway because Tatum's injury. So then the next year, they'll have Tatum coming back, Dame coming back with Derek White and Jaylen Brown. Yeah, that scares the living shit out of me, if I'm going to be honest. The Warriors, Lakers, and Blazers don't make sense. The Blazers have unbelievable amount of guards. The Lakers have Luka Doncic. Dame and Luka can't play together. And Golden State with Curry, is Dame going to come off the bench when he returns from injury? I don't think so. Curry and Dame can't play together. So it's the team that seems the most likely to me is actually the Boston Celtics, and from a pure fit standpoint, if Dame would want to go there, and I don't like that whatsoever. So I might want to sign Dame just so he can't go to Boston, if I'm going to be honest. But make the call. Do you want to sign Damian Lillard in free agency? Type S for sign, type P for pass. And Dame actually kind of spoke on Twitter yesterday for the first time, saying if they call it a gamble at this stage, tell them the jackpot, hashtag to be continued. So obviously very confident in himself, and why wouldn't he be? He's one of the best point guards of all time, and he was named to the top 75 player of all time when they did that a couple years ago. All right, let's transition to Bradley Beal now, because Miami may actually be pursuing the Phoenix Suns guard in a multitude of ways, by the way. And one of the more stunning reports I've seen this offseason, Jake Fischer reported yesterday in the Mark Stein Substack that the Suns and Heat had exploratory dialogue this week on a potential Bradley Beal trade, but the talks ultimately collapsed. Now, I know why it collapsed, but this is a little bit of a surprising one, because with the Miami Heat front office, just knowing the way they operate, this is a move that I did not think they would even contemplate, if we're going to be honest. I'm shocked they discussed it. But by the way, I think it would have been smart. Why do I think it would have been smart? If you are fully in the belief that you won't be able to contend for a title or land a superstar in the next 2 seasons, which, if we're going to be honest, Miami is likely not going to be able to do that, then taking on Bradley Beal's contract, as well as like 2 first-round picks or an unprotected first-round pick in 2032 and like 5 second-round picks, would have been better asset management for Miami. You would have been able to get rid of some of your bad contracts for Beal, get him, and take in a lot of draft capital. And I think Beal's contract is a little bit overstated. Sure, he is going to be under your books for 2 seasons because he's going to opt into that $57.1 million player option if he is not bought out. But it would have been just an expiring contract in 26-27 at a ridiculously high price point that would have set you up in the 2027 NBA offseason to have a lot of cap space to sign a free agent or be major players in the trade market. Now, the reason why these talks ultimately collapsed is because the Heat would have needed Duncan Robinson's contract. Beal makes $53.6 million. So remember, the Suns, being in the second apron, can't aggregate contracts. So you would have thought, oh, you would have just attached Rozier and Wiggins. Well, they actually make $1 more million than Beal. Suns can't take that much money back, and it wouldn't have worked because they can't add a contract to aggregate it to make it a deal. So that wouldn't have worked. You would have needed Terry Rozier, Duncan Robinson, and another contract, like a 3-for-1 deal. So without Duncan Robinson being on your books at $19.8 million, because he obviously had that ETO and then went to the Pistons in a sign and trade, that is why I think if there were actually trade talks, they collapsed. You would have needed Duncan's contract. You can't do it with Wiggins and Rozier. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel because we have content here on the Heat Report every single day. We go live for Heat games in the fall and winter as well, so make sure you join the channel because we have the best coverage of the Heat on YouTube. Jake Fischer on Miami even some more when it comes to Dame and Bradley Beal. The Heat have serious interest in signing Lillard as well as exploring the prospect of adding a bought-out Beal. That's the part I want to focus in here. Lillard is obviously in no rush. He's receiving multiple interest from teams, but the part I wanted to showcase with this specific part of the episode is the part about Bradley Beal. So they had exploratory dialogue about taking him in via trade, but they're also expected to show interest if he is ultimately bought out. That was reported by a couple different people, Brett Siegel included. It doesn't surprise me that they're interested in Dame. It does a little bit to a degree with Bradley Beal because I would have understood making that trade because you would have sent more players out, so you would have opened up roster spots as well as taking in future draft capital for housing Beal. But if he was on the open market, I am a little bit surprised they would show interest. And if they obviously wanted to sign either Beal or Dame, which it sounds like they do, or both, they would obviously need to create roster space because they're currently at the max 15. Now, I do want to bring this up when it comes to Beal, because I know a lot of people will be in the chat and be like, why would they sign Beal on the vet min on the open market? Like, guy stinks. I think that's a little bit over-exaggerated, if we're going to be honest. If you look at the past 2 seasons for Beal in Phoenix, I know he's only played in 53 games each of the last 2 years, and there is injury concern. He's dealt with lower leg injuries, back injuries, but he can still put the ball in the basket. Like, shot 50% or better the last 2 seasons with a three-point percentage at least 38 or better while averaging 17 or more points per game. Like, to me, Bradley Beal's demise is just greatly exaggerated. Now, can he be a top 2 player on a title team? No, he probably can't. But when you look at what Beal has done in his career and over the past couple of seasons, like him being the third fiddle to KD and Book, obviously his points per game are going to go down when he's playing with a 26-point per game score and a 25-point per game score. There isn't enough shots to go around for Beal to average the 23, 25 points per game he averaged in Washington. And as he's gotten older, his defense has declined a little bit. But in the right situation to where he's surrounded by better defenders, because Booker and KD aren't good defenders at this point, and they didn't have any rim protection in Phoenix either, I think Beal could still be a really good contributor to winning. Now, is he worth $50+ million a season? At this stage in his career, absolutely not. I think he would be worth 30, 35. But if he ultimately hit the open market because of what his contract would be, getting paid, being bought out by Phoenix, I think that you could absolutely get him on the vet min because he doesn't need a lot of money. And I would be all in because he would be a great scoring guard off the bench. I probably wouldn't start him alongside Tyler, but he would be an unbelievable sixth man. All right, let's talk about this here because you want to talk about unbelievable. How about this Heat shirt on sale for $16 when it's usually $30? You can get it when you go to chatsports.com/Heat shirt sale. Links in the description and comments of today's video. Sizes are running out, so take advantage of this unbelievable deal right now. $14 off, almost 50%. Chatsports.com/Heat shirt sale. We'll round out today's show with a Jonathan Kuminga update, because I think we need to almost table the Heat Kuminga talk. And I'll explain why here in a second. But Anthony Slater, the main reporter for the Warriors via The Athletic, said last night that the Wizards entered the mix in the last 24 hours, and the idea of Kuminga as a possible fit in Washington's rebuild has gained real momentum. The Heat, Bulls, Bucks, and Nets have also registered varying levels of interest, league sources said. I will say this. I do not think the Miami Heat are interested in Jonathan Kuminga. It is being reported from Heat reporters that Kuminga is interested in Miami, but the Heat aren't that interested in Kuminga. So I believe that Miami is being used as leverage in this situation by the Kuminga camp to try to say, oh, the Heat are actually really interested. And this will either increase the contract he gets from one of those other teams like Washington, Brooklyn, or Sacramento, or make the Warriors be like, okay, maybe we'll just re-sign you on a larger contract. I do not believe that Jonathan Kuminga is actually a real interest point for this Miami Heat front office. But you make the call before we round out today's show. Do you think the Heat are interested in Jonathan Kuminga, or is it a leverage play from Kuminga's camp? Type Y for yes, type N for no. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I know my thoughts. I just kind of laid them out for you there. But I still wouldn't mind him. If the Heat were actually showing interest in Kuminga, I would be in because he does fit this youth timeline now where you slot him in at that 3 spot in your starting lineup. He's 22 years old. You start Kasparis at 19 years old. Hero at 25, Bam will be 28 during the season, and Ware is 21, turning 22 soon. So, you have a really good youth movement there, and then you would likely move Rozier in a separate deal, Wiggins in a separate deal, and just fully commit to going youth. Now, with that being said, though, with the Heat, I don't think they're interested, but the Golden State Warriors are also unbelievably delusional at this point. I don't know what they're thinking with Jonathan Kuminga. Slater also reported that the Warriors are looking for a first-round pick and a young player in return for a Kuminga sign-and trade. And it's just Golden State, who do you think you are? You have no leverage in the situation, in my opinion. Because Kuminga either accepts the qualifying offer and is a one-year deal, unrestricted next season, or I just don't understand how the Warriors think they're going to get that. It's also been reported that the Kings offered 2 second-round picks, Dario Saric and Devin Carter for Kuminga, and the Warriors said no. I could make the argument I'd rather have Devin Carter than Jonathan Kuminga going forward, based off price point and ability to contribute to winning. I just don't know what the Golden State Warriors expect in a sign-and trade for Kuminga. You rarely get a first-round pick in return. So for them to want a first-round pick and a young player, I don't know what that front office is doing over there. All right, I'll do it for today's show. Enjoy the rest of your 4th of July. Stay safe out there, Heat fans, but make sure you're subscribed as well because we're going to continue to bring you content on the daily.